So welcome you guys. My name is Emily Gray and I work for Moss Adams. This is Taylor Jensen, as John let you guys know, although my guess is his face is familiar to some of you. Nope, backward. So this is actually staged. This is how you should not come to meet the firms. Unprepared. Okay, thank you. Okay, so we just want to thank you guys for taking the time to attend this workshop. I'll be honest, I have not been to this before, and I am so impressed by the number of students here, and a lot of you look super sharp, so looking forward to meeting you at Meet the Firms. I'm just curious to get a feel for who's in the rooms. Is it mixed freshmen? Raise your hands. No freshmen?
No freshmen.
Sophomores? Nice. Juniors? Seniors? All right, so primarily seniors, but this will be hopefully relevant for everyone. So I realize that a lot of this you're going to listen to and you're going to be like, well, duh, like of course I'm going to wear a tie to meet the firms, but I think it's important, since we're in recruiting season, full swing, that you remember to have these kind of on the front of your brain. I also feel really funny holding this teeny tiny microphone, but anyway, so a little bit about Moss Adams before we introduce ourselves. Moss Adams is a national public accounting firm. We've been in business for about 104 years. We serve primarily middle market companies. We have public clients, but primarily closely held businesses. We provide tax and audit services and then a whole host of consulting services. And this is actually the first year that we've been recruiting directly into our consulting services. So if you're interested in IT, business risk, all of that, we are hiring directly into those. So let's see here. So this is going to be fairly casual. That's kind of the culture at Moss Adams. Taylor's dressed perfectly for a day on the job. But please ask questions along the way. Taylor and I are still young in our careers. We've both made mistakes, and so there's no question that's a dumb question. We'd rather you ask now than have to make the same mistake. So anyway, my name is Emily Gray. As I mentioned before, I am a Puget Sound alum. Does anybody know where that is? Oh, good. Everyone's like, Puget Sound. So I'm the recruiting coordinator there, and I also dabble in sales and marketing. We like to introduce ourselves with a few photos that kind of represent who we are. So a big part of my life is community service. Moss Adams is really generous in allowing me the flexibility to participate in a lot of volunteer work. My boyfriend and I, we love to travel, more vacation than adventure, but we do a little bit of both. I've got a sister, and my parents are both in Eugene. Taylor and I both sit in the Eugene office. And I have some animals, so I threw those up there too. So yeah, so now I'll let Taylor introduce himself.
Okay, before I introduce myself, just kind of wanted to get a feel for who's in the room as well, not only senior, sophomore, all that. College of Business? Is everybody College of Business here? I mean, you can raise your hand if you just raise them up high, be proud. College of Business rocks here. Who's all accounting or finance? We'll go accounting first.
Woo!
That's right. That's what I like to see. Finance? It's also a good major. What? I did that too. Yeah. Marketing? Woo! Woo! Marketing. Let's see. The management. CIS? Okay. Mac program. I guess that's kind of accounting, but Mac program, and then MBAs. Couple of you guys. Okay, did I miss anybody?
CIS?
CIS? Spanish? French? Anything like that? Okay, I'm Taylor Jensen. I graduated a few years ago from ISU with a double major in accounting and finance. Doesn't sound like the most exciting thing to do, but you guys in accounting and finance know it's riveting. Let's switch this over to you. So I got recruited out of, do the other one, other side. We might need some help, John, on this.
Uh-oh.
We're
in trouble.
It's already been taking care of us. never.
I think they just need to click out of that.
So I came from ISU. Moss Adams came and recruited down here. I met the recruiters during Meet the Firms, had a great chat with them, and decided to apply for an internship. Had an internship, and then got extended a full-time offer, and we moved up there a couple of summers ago. So that's kind of how I got to where I am. I really enjoy recruiting. I was actually on Boise State's campus last week, and I know, I was helping just for Moss Adams' sake, but they didn't have anything like this, so I commend John for what he's doing with this, and then for all you guys showing up too. I've been just very, very impressed with how the professional development week goes for you guys. So, my stuff, you saw some pictures up there of me. I like to do outdoor stuff. I just had a little boy, his name's Knox. He's 7 months old tomorrow. He spent the night screaming in our hotel room, which was so exciting. But we have a lot of fun with that. There's so much to do out on the Oregon coast. We like going out there, hiking, backpacking. I'm a Bengal through and through, don't you worry. I support the Bengals football team, but I can't go to their games as often, so when I do get to go to football games, it's the Ducks. So that's a picture up there of that. And so just a lot of fun up there. And yeah, so that's me. Pass it off to Emily.
Can everybody hear me? Okay, I'm just gonna speak. I'm pretty loud, so I'm just gonna speak. If you can't hear me, just like flag me down and I'll pick up the miniature microphone again. There we go. Okay, but seriously, if you can't hear me, raise your hand. Okay, so be on time. It seems super, super obvious. But one thing about college that I remember, I wasn't in college that long ago, so I do remember if I was on time, great. I didn't get a gold star. If I wasn't on time, nobody really cared. I'd walk in, I had some professors who were like, trying to be on time, but nobody really cares. You're kind of in charge of your own career at this point. In the corporate world, if you're late, they'll lock the door. Don't show up if you're late. You should always plan to be on time. And that's something that for some it's learned hard, but for others it comes more naturally. Just make sure you're planning ahead in case, like today, I decided I was going to get ready an hour in advance just in case, and lo and behold, I hadn't put a time zone on my appointment for this presentation. So I'm thinking, oh, 1:15, I got plenty of time. And then I got an email from John that's like, you guys coming? I was like, let's not be so prepared. So I panicked a little bit, but I was like, well, this is fun because I have an hour to spare. Not saying you need to plan an hour ahead of like a board meeting, but just remember, you can't always predict the unexpected. So coming prepared. So when you show up on time, make sure you know where you're going, who you're going to be with. I probably dress a lot differently for a meeting with Moss Adams partners than I would for maybe, I don't know, you can speak to this, but some of the audits we go on out at a forest products client. They want you in jeans. If I'm meeting with partners, they want me in something a little bit nicer. So know your audience, know where you're going, and who you should be impressing. Respect the people you work for. This extends to your superiors, which is again fairly obvious, but also the people who work beneath you. I think it's great when people come in with internship experience because they've kind of been that first, I don't want to say like lowest on the food chain, but kind of. And so I think they kind of learn the respect that you should show the people below you. Also, in our office, administrative staff, people don't always think that those folks necessarily, I don't know if they don't deserve respect or what, but they're not always shown the respect that they deserve. And what's funny is we always ask the receptionist after we interview people, how did they greet you? Were they rude? Were they dismissive? Were they friendly? And I'll tell you that impression that they make on a receptionist is just as important as someone who's interviewing them. So don't ever forget to show people you work for, with, and above the respect that they deserve. Do what you say when you'll do it. It's always okay to say, I'm really busy right now, but I can get this to you tomorrow morning. Is that okay? just make sure you commit to a reasonable timeline when you're asked to perform a task or a project. Timely communication. So email is such a blessing and such a curse because see an email come in, somebody asks you to do something and you register, you go, okay, yeah, I'll do that. And the person on the other end of that email chain is going, did you get my email? So just remember that you should respond when somebody sends you an email. Hey, I got your email, I'll check in with you this afternoon. I think some of the, and this is not to be like, oh, generational differences, but some of the younger generations, they get that instant text message, email, and think I don't need to respond, but it's really important that you stay in communication. So, positive attitude. At Moss Adams, we joke because, well, that you get a promotion once you've shown us that you can do the next step, basically. So Taylor's a staff auditor, and until he's proven that he can do basically the senior role, we're not going to promote him. So, but he's doing a great job. I won't be surprised if he got promoted in November. So I think the key to that is being positive in your attitude. So even if you don't think you can do something, let somebody know, hey, I haven't done this before, but I want to give it a try. And you will earn their respect. And especially in public accounting, it's a constant learning curve. So no one is going to expect you to do something perfect, but they do expect you to give it your best shot. Appropriate communication needed for the task at hand. So back to email and text message and basically all of the technological bliss that we have. Remember that sometimes it's better to walk down to somebody's office and talk to them face to face. There's a lot that's lost when you email with someone. Just pick up the phone sometimes, head down to your partner's office, ask them a question. Try and decipher depending on, too, back to the generational differences. There's so many different generations in the workplace right now. Know who you're working with and what communication medium is going to be best received. This one kills me. When you're working, put the personal electronics away. I remember in middle school, cell phones were like the brick was out. And our teachers were telling us now, put your cell phones away, put your cell phones away. It has not changed. From the classroom to the corporate world, if you're out and on your cell phone, people still receive it the way they did when I was in 6th grade. You don't care, you're not engaged. I cannot stress this enough. Know when it's appropriate to have your phone out. So it sounds kind of silly, but just don't do it.
Does anybody have any questions or comments kind of on these? The one thing I take away from that is the timely communication. I've been dealing with that with a client right now that thinks that my emails aren't important, and it kills me because I got to get stuff done. I have timelines I got to reach, and I've talked to him. He's like, oh yeah, we'll get it done. And the timely communication is so important. And if you can learn that now, because it is so easy to just like look at an email and just, oh, I'll respond to this later. It's not on the top of my to-do list. But the person who's emailing you is probably, they're emailing you right now because it's on their to-do list and that's where they're at right now. So just try to think on what their side of things are as well. So there is an adjustment period when you're coming from college to corporate life, if you will. It's really nice. I know lots of people like to take that, like you graduate, you go do a summer trip somewhere fun, and then go start a job or start looking for a job. And that can be, you're doing a ton of work at the end of school year, trying to finish up everything for your senior projects, for your thesis, different things like that. And then you come to a time period where you're not working, you don't have any responsibilities, and then you come back to reality with the job. And there is, it can kind of be frustrating when you come into that and you're like, oh yeah, this was great. And then you've got to get up every morning early and go to work. And you can really tell with people who are newly hired that kind of, if they're not prepared to do that, they come in and they're not happy. Oh yeah, I'm starting a new job. Not be bubbling, but So just come in with an attitude, and there is going to be workload adjustments. I thought I was busy during college. I took on a lot of responsibilities. I like to be involved. And when I got working, I really figured out what busy was. There's times that when you're trying to manage family, when you're trying to manage friends, when you're involved in the community, and then you have work on top of that, it seems like you should be able to get that very squared away, but it can be very hard. And so with time management, it's so important to look at what you're doing and do something that works for you. Some people, it's easy to write down a to-do list and then go from there. That's what you need to do. Some people, it's easier to block out chunks of time and go from there. For me, I really enjoy Excel. That's something, you guys, accountants. Excel is awesome. I got this little cool macro thing that helps me to manage myself. But I want to be able to, I have a ton of things to do. And so if you don't write down what you have to do or do whatever you have to do that works to make sure you're getting the things done and in an appropriate time.
And so for those of you like me who are not Excel whizzes and you still need to manage your time, take advantage of, we use Outlook, Microsoft Outlook, but take advantage of your calendar and block out time, even though it feels weird, block out, so when I'm doing a proposal on the marketing side for a huge government job we're bidding on, and I know it's gonna suck, I just know it is, but I need 4 hours to kind of get the ball rolling. I'll block off my morning so that everyone who hits up my calendar to see if I'm available for a meeting is like, nope, she's got a really boring proposal she's got to work on. Better not schedule her for anything else. Had I not had that appointment there, meetings happen. Who knows what would have come up, and I just lost my morning that was supposed to be dedicated to something that's due the next day. So that's another tool that I like to use, and it does feel weird setting an appointment to yourself from yourself for a job you know you have to do, but it does really help.
Kind of on those lines, so don't lose sight of creative thinking. When you've got so much going on, it's so easy to get lost in the details. Don't forget to be creative. I think Dr. Bollinger has a great class talking about the workplace dynamics and all that, and at least he did when I was here. I don't know if he's still here. Is he still here?
Oh, yeah.
Great guy. You haven't taken his class yet. Take some. But he focused a lot on creativity and making sure that you were being creative no matter what you're doing. And that really spurs growth for yourself, not only for yourself, but for those around you and the company you're going to be working for.
Sorry, I feel like I'm trying to interject. But as a recruiter, when people are coming out of college or they come for an internship and they're still in college, it's so evident that you've been utilizing your creative thinking skills. A lot of times when we hire into entry-level positions, a lot of it is, so like for instance in public accounting, it's a lot of compliance work. So like you said, checking that box, knowing what happened last year to this year, just a lot of task-oriented work, but nothing would please your managers more than to continue to think creatively and find a solution to a problem that's existed for a while, or a problem we didn't even know existed. And as you get kind of in the, the day-to-day of task-oriented stuff, it's really easy to lose kind of that piece of your brain that allows you to think creatively. But that will absolutely differentiate you from your peers if you can demonstrate that.
Okay. Learning work-life balance, that actually exists, work and life. And it's just knowing that sometimes you might have a late night here and there that you have to work. But realize that you can still have a life outside of that. One of the things, like I said, when you come out of college, it's hard to imagine being busier than you are. You feel like you've got a ton of stuff. You've got school, you've got jobs. But things do start, maybe it's not tough. My situation might not be tougher than yours. It's different. And so if you can learn to balance now what you're doing between, social life, your academic life, your jobs, learning how to balance that and grow in all those different things, when you transition to a career, that's going to make it so much better for you. So start now, looking at how to make sure you're taking appropriate time for each of those things. One thing that is building a professional wardrobe kind of sounds silly. College students are generally poor, I would say, right? Yes? No? I was, yeah, dirt poor. You guys might not be, but that's, for me, coming out of college and you feel like you've got to look very nice when you go talk, when you're at your first day of work, or even for interviews. Don't stress so much about having an instant wardrobe right now. That's something that, it kind of sounds silly, but we've noticed that with some of the new people that we've started working with and then talking to other recruiters through our firm, is that, fresh students will have a new credit card and just go buy a ton of new clothes. And then they're in debt, and that kind of puts a whole different stress on your life that you don't necessarily need when you're trying to make this huge adjustment. So, build that professional wardrobe slowly but surely. You can get something here and there when you need it. Don't be afraid, or don't think that, oh yeah, I wore these slacks 3 times this week. Don't stress about that. You can have, there's washer and dryers, there's all those kind of things. People don't really care. And so just think about that, and you don't have to just go out and buy a $300 suit today. You can put those pieces together.
So just, if anybody wants to venture a guess, how would you classify my wardrobe and how would you classify Taylor's wardrobe? Yep, both.
What'd they say?
Business casual.
Business casual.
Yep, so
Going
for us,
golfing is what mine is.
so for us, this is business casual. I get a lot of people who see me in this and they go, oh yeah, that's business. This is not business. Business is typically a suit. So just remember that as you go in for interviews. I feel like we're preaching to a good audience. We've come through Meet the Firms and everyone always looks really great. But just know the difference. And again, back to that preparedness, know what's expected depending on where you're going.
Okay. Another thing, so just a couple of things right here. Start saving now. When you get out into the real world, you want to buy a new car, you want to buy a house, you want to travel, because you're going to be working, at least with me, you work with people that have been in career for a long time, probably making a lot more than I am, and you're like, oh, that would be awesome. To do that, to go on that trip to Africa, or to have a new car, have a new house. And none of that can start until you start saving now. It's just, start right now, doing a little bit here and there, what you can, and progressively growing in that. And it makes life easier.
And don't forget about your retirement. I know that sounds so ridiculous, but find a company who's got a generous 401k matching plan and start saving now. I cannot tell you how many people that are older than I am that I've talked to that go, well, I'll never retire because I didn't save. And so it seems like it's just one of those that you're like, oh no, not now, it's fine, I'll do it in 5 years once I've bought that house or purchased that car. Now's the time. Just set aside a certain percentage and don't look back. And I promise you, your retired self will thank you when you're taking that trip to Africa or buying a new house or whatever it is. You will be thankful you did it.
And then coming out of college, generally seniors probably top, if you're getting hired, getting a job, you're fairly smart, I would imagine, maybe a top in your class, kind of feel like you're a top dog, you're a senior, done with college, this is great, and you got hired, these people like you. But you got to realize that it takes time to build trust. They don't trust you automatically coming in. They trust that you're smart, that you know how to do stuff, but you've got to prove that and then build that trust. And so that's really important to not just automatically assume that they trust you to do everything. And if you don't get a certain project, or if you don't get put on something that you had asked to be, and you're like, oh man, how can my boss not trust me in this? Well, it does take time to build that trust, and you can't just get that right away. So it's very important to just remember and be patient when you're coming into this, because it does take a little bit of time.
Especially with some of the older generations who are your managers, your partners, your managing partners. I'd say it takes even more time that way. So just really quick, too, back to learning work-life balance. As you're applying for jobs and internships, show us that you know what this is. At Mosh Adams, we like to work hard and play hard, and we like to find people that fit that culture. So show us that you're more than just a face in a textbook. You know, you like to go out and be with friends. You like to go play sports, play an instrument, whatever it is. Don't be afraid to demonstrate that on your resume and even in your cover letter a little bit to give it some personal flair so that it stands out from the rest of the binder. Okay, so tips for success. So we kind of already talked about appropriate attire and professional presence, but I think looking the part, and I'll try not to knock this over, is so important for first impressions, and that ties into the body language piece. When you show up for an interview or when you show up to meet the firms, be confident. You guys worked really hard to put things on your resume, so be confident when you come through. But on the other side of that coin, don't be too confident, be humble. So just find that good balance and present yourself well. I think for me, one of the, I'm super thankful for this. I have a mom who's, she's a banker, and so growing up, I always had a great role model, how to dress, how to be confident. I think especially as a female professional, that was really important for me. So if you don't have a role model in your life, find somebody who you recognize as successful. And it sounds kind of like a little kid, but try to be like them. Try to mimic some of their behaviors and habits, and find out why they're successful, and implement that for your own life.
Like, especially here at ISU, we have such great faculty and staff here that you can, any of those, you can look how they're presenting themselves, how they hold themselves, and that's a great example for you. So just look around. You guys are very blessed to have such an awesome faculty and staff. Like going around to different colleges and seeing, you know, ISU might not be the biggest school, but I think the College of Business is, I always brag about coming from the College of Business here. People make fun of me a little bit because it's ISU, quote unquote, but we really do have great staff and faculty that are going to be good examples to you and help you get to where you need to go.
So business etiquette, one of the things that we like to do during our interview process is so for second round interviews, we fly you into our Eugene office. One of the things we like to do is send our interview candidates to either lunch or breakfast, depending on your interview time, with a staff or senior accountant. So back to that, you know, respect the receptionist, respect your administrative staff, respect even the lower level staff, because they are essentially interviewing you when you go on this lunch or breakfast interview, and they are paying attention to manners. And it sounds silly, but one of the things that is so important when we send people out to a client on an audit job is that you know how to eat with your mouth closed, not chew gum when you're talking to the chief financial officer. Stuff, again, that is simple and that I'm sure you've all been practicing since you were 5. Don't forget how important that is, because you're constantly being observed. This is just, again, first impressions do last, so make sure when you make that first impression, you do it as best you can.
I'm going to have a funny story about that.
Yes, please.
So last year, we had an individual come in for interviews, and the only thing that I heard, I was actually out of the office when that happened, the only thing I heard about this person was that this individual wore white socks. And that's all anybody talked about. I actually went back, looked at his resume. He looked like a really smart kid. People said that he was nice after he dug into talking about him. But the first impression was he wore white socks with his suit. And that's not, he didn't end up getting hired. But that wasn't because of just that. But the first impression was he wore white socks. And now it's kind of a joke when we're talking to people, make sure you don't wear your white socks, and if you forget your stuff when you're going out on a business trip and you wear white socks, and we all give them a hard time and stuff. So just don't don't forget that first impressions do last, and try to make that first impression very, you're going to have a great opportunity tomorrow in the career fair, meet the firms. That first impression, that's all we have when we're talking to people. And so make it last and make it count.
Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate that we don't have more time to get to know folks. But we really, even in an interview, you've got 30 minutes. So think about that first impression and what kind of impression you want to make. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I was just wondering, did he get the internship or job or position or whatever? Or
No, he didn't.
Because of the White Sox?
It wasn't because of the White Sox. But that's all people remember on that. So just, yeah.
Don't let a first impression kind of cover up what great things you have done. Please do not tell everyone that Los Adams does not hire people to wear White Sox. Have that reputation. Speaking of first impressions. We've talked about this already, but know your audience. When you're going on an interview, maybe match your socks to your suit. They don't have to be nice, fancy boss socks, but.
Effective communication, Henley talked about that. Learn how to do that now, though. It's so hard to communicate with people. It really is. It seems like it would be so simple, but you'd be amazed by the difference you can have between what you think you said and what they thought you said, and the problems that can come from that. And so just learn to be clear and concise. Know when to do email versus face-to-face. And then there's always this parking lot talk, there's in the hallway, all this kind of stuff where you don't really need to do that. Gossiping about certain things, or you're talking about clients, or sensitive information. You might be with people that are, maybe you're not in your group, but in an elevator that they shouldn't be hearing these kind of things. So just remember, effective communication doesn't just include being good, clear, and concise, but also you're knowing your audience and managing that.
It's incredible how small the business community is. I don't care where you work. You can work in Seattle, you can work in Eugene. Business communities are small, and the influential people for each firm, they all talk. So when Taylor's talking about, talking negatively about a coworker in the elevator, that person that's standing behind you probably knows the managing partner and is going to want to know why, so-and-so got arrested last weekend and da-da-da-da-da. So just, be aware of exuding negativity and just don't do it in the workplace. Take it home and put it on Facebook.
Yeah. Maybe not the greatest. I'm just kidding. Jokes, guys. We can't joke too. Critical thinking, time management is a must. We talked about that. Think about who you are, the best way you work. What works for me is going to work for you, most likely. So figure out what works for you. You're probably going to fail a couple times at that when you're trying to figure that out, but do it. It's worth it. This sounds silly, but practice situational analysis. When you're just practicing things in your head, you're going through what would happen, what if in this situation, what if in this. But it really does help, and especially when this next phase for you guys is going to be interviews. So think about what an interviewer might ask. What's important to you? How you're going to respond to that. Your body language in that situation. So just think about those different things, and then go from there. This is. I like this one a lot. You're not always going to get it right. Don't worry about that. You've got, in our industry we have people reviewing work, and then you have people reviewing work, and you have more people reviewing your work. And you're going to get stuff wrong all the time. And it'll get caught. So don't stress about, oh my gosh, you just get so caught up in making that's so right that you forget to think about what's actually going on in the situation. That you don't focus so much on the details that you forget to see the whole picture. And if you can kind of take a step back and look at what you're actually trying to do, and you can apply this in school right now. You're focusing on a certain principle or something like that. You are going to, if you take a step back to see how it fits in the whole big picture, it just makes the learning process and growing process a lot easier.
Think of, so public accounting, when I think about like a good example, is like a really hard math class. And when the professor goes, I'm going to teach you a lot of new concepts and material, it's your job to know them and show me on a test, but I don't just want the right answer. I want to see your thought process. I want to see you work out the solution on your test so that if you don't get to the right answer, I can at least find where you went wrong and give you credit for the stuff that you've done correctly. And that's the most effective way to learn from your mistakes. So.
Developing creative solutions, that's just coming back to that. Being creative, there's a million ways to figure out a problem. And the way that it's been done in the past doesn't necessarily mean it's the best way. Generally, it's the fastest way that they could do in that time frame, and they put some things together and it got jimmy rigged, and that worked at that time. But if you can see a different way of doing something, and you're like, okay, let's try this. It comes back to, taking the chance at doing that and coming back. You won't always get it right, but at least you tried that, and you're showing to your managers, the partners, the boss, that you're willing to try to improve something, and that's huge. Even if you didn't get it right, they're going to take will look at that and say, okay, you're trying to be creative, you're trying to make this better. We appreciate that, and you'll progress faster in your career doing that.
Okay, so what can you do now? If you don't have a mentor already, try and find one. Mentorships are typically, or are kind of formed organically. You just kind of recognize when you meet somebody who has great influence on you, and it's positive influence, and you're like, I want to know that person better. I want them to mentor me because I want to be like them. So find a mentor. Some people think that a career advisor and a mentor are one and the same. They certainly can be, but they don't have to be. Your mentor can be somebody who influences your personal life, your professional life, your academic life, that maybe doesn't even have a stake in the game. I'd say your career advisor, wants you to get a career or leads you down the path to promotion. But your mentor, I think, is really somebody who's just concerned with supporting you. And don't be afraid to ask somebody, hey, I really like who you are. Do you mind mentoring me? And I would be shocked if someone was like, no. That would be really awkward for both. As you go through Meet the Firm and career fairs, again, this is like the snapshot. It's hard to get a feel for a company's culture, so make sure that you're asking the right questions. What attracted you to this firm? What's kept you there? If you could describe the culture in one word, how would you describe it? That's so important, and for me, that's what's kept. I've been there 3 years, but when I started at Moss, I had other jobs, and I got there and I was like, I found a career. You can just feel it. So don't be afraid to ask people as you interview about that, because it's so important. And know what's right for you. What somebody finds important in a certain company might not be the same for another person, and that's okay. That's great. There are a lot of people who are great fits for the Big Four, and we want nothing more than for them to find that fit, just as we want people who like to work hard and play hard come work for Moss Adams. So know what's right for you. Start thinking about that, and don't be afraid to ask. Personal and professional networks. Now is like, if you haven't done it already, start networking. You will, I think you'd be shocked to find what networks will follow you through your professional life. I got this job because I babysat for someone when I was 12. And she called me and said, hey, are you living in Eugene? And I was like, yeah, why? And she's like, and I'd actually just moved back and I was looking for a job. And she's like, I've got a marketing position open, and I know you studied that in college because, I know your family and I know you. We think you'd be a great fit. Do you want to come in for an interview? And I was like, yeah, I do. And I can't believe that a babysitting job, and someone I kept in touch with got me that first round interview. So don't underestimate your networks and start to build them. External and internal networking. So that's kind of the external side. Once you have a job or an internship, it's just as important to network with the people you work with as it is the people outside of your workplace. Those are the people who, if you ever do move on to a new career, that you want to call for a reference. or that you want them to pick up the phone when they've heard of a new opportunity that they think you might be interested in. And just for the peer-to-peer support, it's good to go out to lunch with coworkers and to show up for the baseball game that your office is sponsored or whatever. Build those personal relationships on the inside as well, and I guarantee you'll enjoy coming to work a lot more.
I can't stress enough the importance of networking. Just this last week, actually, well, on Labor Day, is this Labor Day? Yeah, Monday, I was at a barbecue with some friends, and my buddy's a pharmacist. He hates his job right now, and I wish I would have known that, because a couple of weeks before, I had just met the head of the regional pharmacy tech coordinator director of a big grocery store chain we deal. And if I would have known that he was miserable in his job and known that, oh, he would like to work for this company, that I could have hooked them up together. And I'm still going to try that. But just knowing, an accountant, you wouldn't think necessarily that they would know the pharmacy director for a large grocery chain outlet. But things happen, and so just don't close off that network to anybody. It's just, things happen, and you can meet a lot of cool people, and you never know what's going to come of that.
Sorry, I
That's
stole
me. Sorry.
half of your slide.
You did. That's okay. So what can you do now? Look, first off, I would just take a second, take a few minutes to figure out what you would like to do. It's really hard right out of college to know exactly what you want to do. You kind of have this imagined life path that you want to take. And by all means, try for that. Go for that. And once you figure that out, figure out, okay, how am I going to get into that with? Do I need to find an internship, a mentorship? Is it time for me to start looking for a job? But look at what you would like to do and then pursue that. And as life comes at you, you might change. Your dream job might change as you figure out, oh, I really don't like this. I started out wanting to do tax returns. Well, wanting to do tax returns, it's kind of silly. Yeah, but I enjoyed them. But as I got going through it, I found out that I really didn't like it as much. Coming out of college, I wouldn't have had that same outlook. I was thinking, okay, I'm going to focus on tax work and go from there. But as I dove into that side of my career, I realized that I didn't really like that. And assurance and auditing and doing that side of accounting, I have really enjoyed it. And so my life took a little bit of a turn right there. So when you're looking at these things, see what you want to do, think about that, and then figure out what you need to do to get there. And it seems daunting and it can be hard, but you guys have, like I said, John can help you out. You've got great career advisors here to help you find each of these different things. This sounds silly, a sports team to join, but if you're out like doing like a rec soccer league or a rec basketball league, you'd be surprised that like we were playing one week against the team and it was a group of partners from an accounting firm, there were some bankers in there were some lawyers, and you'd never imagine that. But if that's the direction you want to take your career, well look, you know them from this situation and you can get to developing that relationship a little bit more. So there's just so much that you can do, but like I said, look what you kind of want to, have a vision of what you want to do, and then pursue after that. Do you guys have any questions, thoughts, concerns?
Sorry, I've just been checking my watch because I want to respect everybody's time in case you've got class or a sports team to go join.
Rec league's great. Intramurals, even better.
I think, I don't know how to go back on this thing, but the last two, the volunteer, join a sports team, play in a sprint, whatever, that's the experience that not only is great for the networking portion, but is also great, like I said before, on a resume. We love nothing more than to see people who can interact with a lot of different personalities on a basketball court and, show respect on the basketball court, work in a team environment. And although it doesn't seem like it translates directly, as interviewers and recruiters, it totally does. Totally does. So, thank you guys for your time. We realize you know a lot of this, but I totally appreciate your attention. And if you have any questions, we will be at Meet the Firms. I hope you come by. We've got a lot of sweet swag that I don't want to take back to Eugene. So please come by our booth, and we'll be here afterwards too if you have any questions.